Hi, my name is Andrew Dawson, and I like flags. It's usually a fun and innocent thing to like. It's just fascinating to me how many different variations of colors and stripes and stars and other symbols there can be. But what's doubly fascinating to me is how all of these different variations of flags can come to represent so many different peoples, places, and things. What's triply fascinating is how, if you look at enough of them, you'll come to find that they're all fairly repetitive. And if you analyze what the symbols are attempting to mean, they typically mean the same things from flag to flag. It's almost as if all the peoples of the world, as unique and diverse as they may be, are united in a shared interest of blood and space. Sometimes liking flags isn't very fun or very innocent. Sometimes flags can represent bad things, and that sucks because, well, bad things suck. What's confusing about it sometimes, though, is sometimes a flag can represent a good thing, but also represent a bad thing. And to make matters more confusing, sometimes different peoples interpret the same flag in different ways. It's just a big old mess, this human experience of ours. One flag recently has been risen above all the others to serve as a banner of confoundment. The flag of which I speak should come as no surprise. It's the Betsy Ross flag. It's in the title and description of the video you clicked on. Pay attention. The Betsy Ross flag consists of 13 stars arranged in a circle on a blue field. There are also 13 stripes alternating red and white. These 13 stars and 13 stripes represent the 13 states that consisted of the United States of America at its inception with the Declaration of Independence. As America expanded, new states were formed, and so new stars were added to the flag. Very quickly, America got rid of the circle design because that many stars in a circle kinda looks complicated and weird. Fun fact, America was also supposed to add stripes for every new state, but again, very quickly realized that that was going to become very cumbersome very fast, and so just kept it at 13. So now, America has a flag that looks aesthetically less pleasing than its first flag. It just doesn't have that circle. It's the circle design. I like circles. Circles look nice. So this creates a situation where, let's say I'm feeling patriotic, and I am. I want to express this patriotism for all the world to see. And why do I want that? I don't know. It's definitely a conversation worth having, but I'm not going to have it right now because I just want to talk about the flags, because I like flags. So I can wave the more modern, accurate American flag. No problem, that's the flag. But I could also wave the old flag that I just think is better looking. And the thing is, they both get the same point across. I like America. So I'm just gonna go with the old one. They're the same thing, really. So I'm waving this nice looking flag. I'm feeling good. Everything's perfect. But what if it's not? Somewhere in the den of despair, disaster strikes. Wow. I didn't know you were a racist. I didn't either. Are these the hands of hate? Is this the face of fear? Are these the eyes of the damned? Is this the freckle of the oppressor? Is this the toenail of prejudice? Who am I? Who am I? I'm Jean Valjean. No, I'm Andrew Dawson. I like flags. That's me. Flag guy. Many minutes and words into this video essay, and I just now start getting to talk about the actual subject of the video, which turns out to be shoes. I thought we were going to talk about flags. No, it's shoes. For some reason, it's shoes. Around the 4th of July, Nike was planning on selling a pair of shoes with a Betsy Ross design on them. They canceled those plans reportedly on the suggestion of Colin Kaepernick. I could not find exactly what Mr. Kaepernick said, but the official Nike statement was that they were hesitant to unintentionally offend or detract from the nation's patriotic holiday. Between Kaepernick's involvement and the design in question, the implication here is that Nike was afraid that the shoes would be offensive to black people. And so my fellow white Americans did what they always do. They got outraged. You know, wait a minute, now the American flag is racist too? PC culture is run amok in this country. Why do they have to ruin everything? And I get it. I decorate my space with the flag on trial. It's natural to have a knee-jerk defensive reaction. It's a little bit of a shock sometimes when people challenge your behavior. But once that initial shock wears off, you still gotta deal with the challenge. It's not going anywhere. And it doesn't help anybody, least of all yourself, if we ignore huge problems. So let's not ignore huge problems. Let's try and understand. What would a black person find offensive about the Betsy Ross flag? Turns out there are easy answers to that question. The Betsy Ross flag was the original flag of America, yes, but that flag flew over a nation that was coextensive with the institution of slavery. Many white Americans often forget or just straight up ignore that America is a nation that consists of many different peoples and cultures. The American national identity is not defined by race. It's defined by choosing to be an American. And how different peoples come to America and choose to be Americans is going to be unique to that people. And from this, we have different and unique perspectives of what it means to be an American. And from that, we are in a situation where we have different American histories. There are many of those histories. I'm only going to talk about two, though, because these are the two relevant to this video. And they are the history of the Founding Fathers, who defeated the British and founded a nation on the promise of democracy and liberty. But there is also the history of the slaves, who were kidnapped from their homes and forced to toil under the cruel supervision of those same Founding Fathers. I look at the Betsy Ross and can see a flag that represents foundational values such as democracy. But a black person whose ancestors were slaves can look at that same flag and think, there's a flag that represents foundational values, such as racism. And we're both right. You know, the Founding Fathers did found a democracy, and they did have slaves. So if we're both right, then that means the Betsy Ross flag represents a racist democracy. Which means the Betsy Ross flag is racist. Damn it. That's not the answer I wanted. Now I have to answer questions about myself like, why do I still have it hanging up in my office? You know, I'm not racist, so why do I have a racist symbol hanging up by my desk? Why can't I just let it go? I'm an American. Sure, it's an American flag, but we have more than just one American flag. In fact, we have the modern American flag with the 50 stars. It's more accurate. It represents our nation as it is today. And slavery is not legal today, so I can wave this flag free from the historical baggage of the institution of slavery. Good, great, problem solved. Thank you. Except racism still exists. Institutionalized, systemic racism. And, you know, we're still an imperial, settler, colonial nation. There's that too. There's so much bad stuff going on, and it goes down underneath the waving of a flag. This flag. So, I guess that won't do either. What do? I know, we can make a new flag. Come on, we'll go to my computer and we'll get on paint.net, which is a program you get if you don't want to spend money on Photoshop. All right, American flag. Red, white, and blue. The colors didn't do anything wrong, so I think we can keep those. So let's make 3 very neutral stripes. Okay, we've made a very nice flag of the Netherlands, and that will not do. We gotta make it distinct. What do we got? Stars! Stars are for everyone. They're in the sky. So let's just, 3 stars for the 3 colors. Red, white, and blue. Hell yeah, we got a flag, look at it. Let's get onto online flag waver and just look at it wave. It's so majestic. Just wonderful. Fuck yeah. I can't. This flag isn't doing it for me either. It feels fake. It feels like a lie. This flag was made to ignore the sins of the past. This flag was made to hide behind. This flag was made to pretend everything's fine. Which is just like all the others, really. So if making a new flag isn't going to be the solution, then maybe the flag isn't the problem. Maybe it's what goes on underneath the flag that's the problem. Maybe America is the problem. It's not that the flags are racist, it's that America is racist. These flags represent America, but they are not themselves America. And because they represent America, they are connected to racism, but they are not themselves racist. So what about me? I identify as an American. Am I racist? No, of course not. Well, how do you know, Andrew? Because I'm not racist and I identify as an American. I think, therefore I am. That's a smart person quote, right? But this just raises more questions, like, how do I reconcile my American identity with the primary contradictions of American history and indeed modern American life? And I don't have a good answer for that. I just do. Maybe it's that I have a personal conception of what I think America is and what I think America should be. I feel like America was founded on the promise of building an egalitarian utopia in the Declaration of Independence. It's maybe a bit cliche to cite that, but it's there and exists, and I'm going to cite it. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with unalienable rights. Of these is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I love that shit, because there are just some hard-hitting, powerful words in that statement. It's self-evident. Cannot be debated. There is no discourse to be had. People are equal. Period. That's it. Unalienable. Cannot be taken or given away. Equality and liberty are just forces of nature. You cannot debate them any more than you can debate a hurricane. Yet these words were written by men who stole people's liberty and did not view them as their equals. It's hypocrisy at its highest. And it's hypocrisy that should not be ever overlooked, and indeed was not overlooked, and continues to be analyzed to this day and through to the next. So to me, being an American is living inside this hypocrisy and fighting against that hypocrisy so that we can build the egalitarian utopia that was promised. You know, in a way, to be an American is to try and make the myth of America the reality of America. By waving the Betsy Ross, I feel as though I'm holding America accountable to the promise it made. Hey, remember when you said you would do the thing? Why aren't you doing the thing? But that's just my personal conception, though. That's just my interpretation. There are other interpretations, there are other perspectives. There are those out there who think of America as having fallen from grace. And they often think that, wasn't it so much better when all of these different peoples knew their place? And, you know, slavery wasn't all bad. It was good for the black people too, and it wasn't as mean and cruel as you say it was. And, you know, I don't want to talk about that though. I want to talk about states' rights, because states are supposed to have rights, and they don't anymore, and that's what the founding father Jesus Christ wanted. Heavens to Betsy, our nation has made some mistakes. If only we could go back to the better time. And for them, the Betsy Ross is a symbol of that better time. You know, for them, they wave it to hold America accountable for what it was and to assert that it can be that again. And that sucks. It really just sucks, because now I find myself in a situation where I'm flying and waving a Betsy Ross flag, and the KKK is also waving and flying the Betsy Ross flag. But hey, you know, the KKK is your grandpa's hate group, you know, that they're a small group of terrorists that no one takes seriously, and, you know, so maybe no one will notice. Except for, you know, the people they terrorize. The people they terrorize take them very seriously. They notice. White nationalists aren't a fun joke. They're real, and they commit atrocities that hurt real people. And that hurt is not something people are going to forget for a long time. It's going to sting. Maybe forever. So when these white supremacist groups go out, wrap themselves up in red, white, and blue aesthetics, and commit atrocities, can you really blame the minority communities for not feeling particularly enthused about exuberant displays of patriotism? No, you can't. You know, you'd put the flag at half-staff at the very least. That's the respectful and patriotic thing to do for your fellow Americans. Except that's not what typically happens. In a CNN article called "Kaepernick Betsy Ross Flag Controversy Will Only Push Voters Back to Trump," Carrie Sheffield states that many progressives have learned nothing from 2016 about divisive left-wing rhetoric and the alienating effects of hurling insults at anyone who doesn't buy into a political groupthink that ignores broader truths. And one can only think, wow, what a terribly written article from the headline to the end. But let's ignore that for now, because we need to really understand what Sheffield is trying to say here. Sheffield is insulted by Nike's decision to remove from sale those Betsy Ross shoes. But what's really insulting about that? You know, I can't find what Colin Kaepernick said, but if it was along the lines of "this might be offensive to black people," then I'm not sure what's insulting about that. And Nike's official statement that they were hesitant to unintentionally offend or detract from the nation's patriotic holiday, that's also not an insult. They're not shouting down on me and my Betsy Ross flag and calling me a big stupid dumb butt. They're not saying that. Honestly, they're not even really calling the flag racist. They're at worst calling it inappropriate, which isn't really an insult. So what's to be insulted about? Sheffield goes on to say that by rejecting the flag, Kaepernick is conceding the symbol's far deeper and more meaningful history to those whose ideologies belong in the garbage bin. Sheffield is insulted by Nike's and Kaepernick's decision to give away the Betsy Ross flag. She thinks they are handing the Betsy Ross flag to hate groups. Sheffield, I assume, believes the same thing I believe about the Betsy Ross flag, that by waving it we are holding America accountable for its foundational promise of equality and liberty. So when Nike removes the Betsy Ross design, they are rejecting that interpretation and insisting that the white supremacist definition of the Betsy Ross flag is actually the true one. And that is a shitty thing to do, because you are giving white supremacists gifts. And you shouldn't give white supremacists gifts because they hate America. And if you're giving them gifts, then does that mean you hate America too? And I'm an American, so does that mean you hate me? And I must admit, I kind of felt the same way at first. That's the natural defensive reaction. But if you get over that shock and think about it, that narrative doesn't really make sense. Did you know Colin Kaepernick is actually a black person? It's true. Look it up. White supremacists don't typically care about the thoughts and feelings of black people. It's just not what they're about. It turns out white supremacists were using the flag way before Colin Kaepernick ever knelt or did anything, really. There's no connection or correlation between Colin Kaepernick's Nike flag controversy and white nationalists using the Betsy Ross flag. Colin Kaepernick didn't give the KKK the Betsy Ross flag. They took it because to them it represented an America based on racial hierarchy. And so black people see these hate groups waving these flags and associate those flags with those hate groups. Black people did not make the flag racist. The racists made the flags racist. As much as I view the Betsy Ross as some sort of light to shine on hypocrisy, I cannot ignore that white nationalists look at it as a callback to the bad old days. And I can't ignore minority communities who have to deal with white supremacy firsthand for not wanting to express an American national identity through the waving of flags used by genocidal maniacs. I can't do that. Furthermore, it becomes very difficult to argue for and fight for my interpretation of the Betsy Ross when so much of white America just wants to throw a racially motivated temper tantrum whenever black people and other minorities choose to express themselves in different ways. I sincerely believe in my interpretation of the Betsy Ross flag, but do people like Carrie Sheffield sincerely believe in it as well? And with articles like the article she wrote, I'm left doubting. Consider that there are many reasons to not want to put an American flag on a shoe. Many reasons that have nothing to do with race. Primarily flag codes that state you should not put American flags on clothing, you should not use American flags in advertising, and maybe most importantly in this situation, American flags should not touch the ground. Shoes touch the ground. You don't want an American flag down low in the dirt and mud. You want it up high where it can be seen by all. No one who is offended by this Nike shoe flag controversy is talking about flag codes. They're talking about race. They're talking about how Colin Kaepernick made them feel bad. They're talking about how they wish black people would stop complaining. They're using the whole situation not to talk about their love of the flag. They're using it as an excuse to cross their arms, look down on people, and say, love it or leave it. So I can't blame minorities for not believing the sincerity of my interpretation, because the anecdotal evidence suggests that many white people don't agree with me. Many white Americans look at the Betsy Ross and think the same thing those white nationalists think. I don't believe the Betsy Ross flag is racist, except of course when it's being used by racists in racist ways. But it's clear to me and clear as day to anyone and everyone with eyes that this Nike shoe controversy thing was a racist outburst. And if my fellow Americans are genuine in their desire to take the Betsy Ross flag back, and indeed sincere when they say they want to build an egalitarian utopia, then we gotta stop being so defensive and touchy. When people call out problems, you have to listen and you have to answer those problems, hopefully with solutions. You know, I don't know how to build an egalitarian utopia. There's no YouTube tutorial for it. But I think maybe stop blaming black people. Stop blaming black people sounds like a good first step.